Welcome to Let Fear Bounce, the podcast that sheds light on the transformative power of overcoming fear. And dogs and coffee will more than likely creep into our conversations. So join me, Kim Lengling, the host of Let Fear Bounce, as I chat with folks from around the world who share their inspirational stories and how they've turned their fear into fuel for a brighter future. You're going to hear from folks just like you and me. People who have navigated challenges and unleashed their personal strength to craft a life filled with fulfillment and joy. So are you ready to be uplifted, inspired, and motivated to conquer your own fear and bounce toward a life that you love? I know that I am. So grab your coffee, sit back, relax, and let's get this show started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is Kim Lengling, your host, and I am so happy that you are deciding to spend just a small part of your day with myself today and my special guest, Diann Boehm. She is an author. Let's see here. She is an award-winning international author of children's books and young adult historical fiction. In addition, she writes books to inspire readers to be kind, love themselves, peace in the world, and to embrace imagination. You can find all of her books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or you can order them through your favorite bookstore. She's a graduate of George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia, with a Bachelor of Science in Education, and she later received her kindergarten endorsement at the University of Texas in Austin. She's had good fortune to work with incredible individuals and organizations doing humanitarian work in various countries over the years, and she has found that storytelling of one form or another always plays a role. Diann, thank you so much for being my guest on Let Fear Bounce. I have been so looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. And that was such a lovely introduction. I was turning red.
Isn't it funny to hear your bio read by someone else?
It is. I'm like, who's she talking about?
Yeah,
I did do that.
I feel the same way. I'll sit there and go, oh, wow, you almost get, at least for me, I'll almost get uncomfortable. And I'm like, I did do that stuff. Wow. I've done a few things.
Yeah, I've come a long way from being that little girl who wasn't quite sure if she should go say hi to somebody.
Right. Exactly. So, hey, I want to jump right into it. You've got 13 books out, which is awesome. So between children's books and young adult historical fiction, I think both of those genres are awesome. We were talking off mic. I love talking or reading. I love reading children's books still to this day. So I want to know why you decided to write children's books, and you've got many of them out there and they all share a lesson. So what is it, from your heart that you're putting into these books?
Thank you so much for the question. So, first of all, welcome to my story garden. I just want to share behind you is children's books.
Yay!
And some of them go all the way back to my mama when she was a child. And so children's books have always played a role in the family, even when I was a little girl with mama reading and my daddy, but mostly mama reading to us. My background is elementary education. And I have always been a storyteller. And even when I was 10 years old, that's when the first time I fell in love with the stage. And after that, it was like, okay, what can I do now to be on stage, to sing or tell a story or do whatever to bring a smile upon someone's face. When I was in the classroom, I would make up stories just to kind of break things up and let the kids feel more comfortable about what we're doing. So I'd even come up with like a story about mathematics, the three little bunnies were hopping around, but they really wanted that carrot. Who was going to get it? Well, we divided it enough for three people to have it, and they're like, oh, I understand fractions now, So
I wish I would have had a teacher like you.
oh, thank
because
you.
I'm horrible at math. I'm absolutely horrible at math.
I wasn't that great at math, and I think that's why it's those subjects that were the hardest for you that you ended up teaching the best because you didn't want people to be crying like you did when you were taking the class. So, right. Anyway, one thing led to another, and I was out in the garden. I pretend I have a green thumb, but I do love slushing around in the mud and all that stuff and watching plants grow, hopefully. But anyway, and it just dawned on me that I should take the stories that I've said through the years and put them to print. It was time. So I really listened to the angels and thought, okay, I can do that. And so inside I went, and I'm hesitating because I know I told you a story offhand, but I'm going to go ahead and tell it. And so, okay, my kiddos, brace yourself. The other reason that I started writing children's books is I knew one day my kids were not going to listen to me when they became parents. And so I thought, besides inspiring young children to write, that my future grandchildren, they could learn lessons through my books. And so when the kids didn't want to listen to what I thought might be kind of a neat idea or something, um, I just work it into the story. Oops,
Oh,
it's
there you go.
out.
And by golly, look, your kids are teaching their kids your lessons anyway.
That's right.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
Thank you. So everyone listening, there you go. Write your stories down.
There you go. Encourage people to write their own books so you can put your own lessons in for your own kids who never listen to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let us know. We'll read the stories.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I was telling you off mic again, I love reading children's books. I get a kick out of them. And I like seeing how other authors, how their brains work, because as an author myself, I think in the background as well as in the story part when you're reading it. Do you do the same?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, um, you know, I like to think of my books as multi-layered. So how a child is going to take a story in will be one way. But how a parent takes it in, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, is she speaking to me?
See, look at all the lessons you're teaching us already today.
Thank
These
you.
you're giving us these little nuggets you're tossing out there that we
Yeah.
can all use, all of the writers out there that might be listening in. So, did you always want to be an author?
No, matter of fact, absolutely 100% not. I enjoyed creative writing in high school, but I was one of these. Well, first of all, everyone listening, I'm a lot older. We didn't have computers. So my brain would think so quickly while I was writing that I didn't get all the commas in, or I might have run on sentences or whatever. And so by the time the teacher got it, I'd be so proud of what I wrote. I remember one of my stories, brace yourself, was Elvis Presley is alive. He's living on a planet. And I just thought that was so brilliant. And so I was so proud to turn that in, right? And anyway, uh, so actually, he still really was alive. I'm not sure he'd appreciate that story. But anyway, the story came back to me and it was just filled with red marks everywhere. And I got a horrible grade because, I should have moved this sentence over here and I should have done this. And the commas were all wrong. And I had really long hair and I just covered my face up in my hair and the tears were just rolling down. And I just thought, I'm never going to write. I'm not meant to write. I don't get those commas where they're supposed to be. The comma made sense to me because I took a breath when I was reading it in my brain.
Right,
So,
right,
so I thought, okay, I took a breath. I'll put a comma there.
right. Yeah.
Anyway, it's what you do when you sing, right? It makes sense to me.
Right,
So, but
right. Well, that's the joke in my family is because I had said earlier I'm horrible at math, and when you said because in your brain you took a breath when you were reading in your brain, that's how I do math. I always say, well, I have give me a minute. I have to erase my mental chalkboard. So I
exactly.
got it. I got that problem wrong. Give me a second to erase my mental chalkboard, and then I can rewrite the problem out and figure it out. So that's kind of the joke in my family. They'll be like, "Oh, give her a minute. She's erasing her mental chalkboard."
I love that. I have to remember that one. I love that.
And that can be used for writing, you know?
Right, right. But one thing leads to another, and you grow up and you learn how to write properly. And luckily, I had some educators as I was going to school who saw that I was really good with writing and said, "Don't worry about it. You're going to re-edit everything anyway. You don't get a grade, blah 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 blah." And before I knew it, I was like, "Oh, how about that?"
Yeah,
So
I can write.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
So when was your first book out?
Gee whiz. I think about how long it took to even get a book out, but I think it's been about 11 years now.
Okay. Now,
Yes.
did you go traditional publishing, or do you self-publish, or have you done a little bit of both?
I was originally trying to do it the professional way with an agent and everything. And a long story short, the agent was selling my stories or the titles of my books and everything. Um, and that was really tragic. You could make a movie out of everything if you knew the whole backstory. And it just knocked me for a loop because I'm so trusting and think everyone's just, so kind and loving. And so if somebody breaks my trust, I'm just blown away because I don't understand. We're adults. We're not supposed to be that way. So I live in the Pollyanna land sometimes. And so and then when I was in Dubai, because I lived there for 14 years in the Middle East, I met this wonderful woman who decided she was going to start her own hybrid publishing. When hybrid publishing was brand new, like she was one of the first people. And Anne O'Connell, she is OC Publishing in Canada. That's where she's from. And so I was the first person the first book that she published. And I was so pleased that she gave me a chance. And I love the different, hybrid publishing is very interesting. And then there's self publishing. And so now, though, I have 3 publishers. Isn't that amazing?
That is
So,
amazing, though. That is amazing. I
yeah.
see, for myself, and it's interesting, the story you just shared, it's kind of parallel with how mine was. I
Hmm.
met a lady through a networking thing at the beginning of the pandemic, so I decided gonna make my own job. So I did, and I was online constantly joining groups and networking and all of that. And she's from England, and I said, I've got this idea for an anthology, and she said, I'm literally starting up my own little publishing company. And
Wow.
so we connected that way. And that's how I have a 3 book series called When Grace Found Me. And that's how those started. So she's kind of, a hybrid publisher. But
Hmm.
I went the self-publishing route, my last 2 books, and then my
Hmm.
one's coming out. Just it's nice for me. And tell me if this is the same for you. I like knowing exactly when I can put it out, how I can put it out, how I can market it, where I market it, what it's going to look like. In other words, I have full control of the whole process from beginning to end. Now I have an editor and people like that do things, but have you done self-publishing at all, or you just use your 3 publishers?
You are so blessed that you have a brain that wants to do all of that. That is the last thing that I want to do. And,
Ah, okay.
and so now I'm with Nords Triad Publishing, who are publications, who just did Boomer the Curious Bunny, which is going to turn into a series. And they do everything. So all I have to do is write. And so I like, yay!
Well, it does make it much easier.
Yes, but the great thing about self-publishing, I believe, is for everything you just mentioned, but also that, you said marketing, which was extremely important, which is very tough for me to do. But then the money that comes in, it comes to you.
Right, right.
So that's a huge plus.
Yes, it is actually. Now my books aren't like these amazing internationally best-selling USA Today, New York Times bestsellers. you know,
That's okay.
the way I look at it is, if I can recoup my out-of-pocket costs and then
Mhm.
make a little something, I think that's a win.
It absolutely is. And, you brought up a really good point that for all our listeners, that look, we don't write because we're going to become famous. The percentage of people who actually get a movie, that's so teeny tiny, right? You write because all of a sudden there's this fire in your gut and you just have to get that message out. And the message could be something where as simple as, just to love yourself, to share kindness, or the message is just to a pure joy to make them laugh because you have that personality that you can come up with those one-liners, which I cannot do, but you just want to get it out because you want to make a difference to somebody, and you may never know who you made that difference to, but in your heart that somewhere you made a difference in the world, and that's why you're still here on the planet. I get carried away, sorry.
No, I am right there with you, sister. I am right there with you. And yet I like how you did mention it's a very small percentage of people that get movies made. It's also a very small percentage of authors that hit the USA Today or New York Times best-selling lists.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
And I know when I was doing, I've had so many people say, well, are you going to make any money? And I'm like, why is that
Yeah,
your first question?
right, right.
I just wrote a book. That's exciting stuff. And not everybody can say they did. And the first question I get asked is, well, are you going to make any money? If not, and what are you doing it for?
And that's sad. That shows their priorities aren't quite there yet within their own mind, right?
Right, right. And I'm like, well, this is my world. And,
Mm-hmm.
you live in yours and I'll live in mine. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Where to me is when, before I even was published and somebody told me they wrote a book, I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That is amazing. How did you do that? We need to go celebrate.
Yes.
That would be my reaction.
Yes. And when I've had people say, I've been thinking, and there's a lot of people that say I've always wanted to write a book. And my answer or reply to that is, well, why haven't you?
Oh, I love that.
People are, oh, I've always wanted to. Well, why haven't you?
Mm.
And then they're like, oh, I don't have time. Like, you know what? You can always find time.
Yes,
You can
yes,
always find time for that for which you have a passion for, because that gift wasn't given to you to let it sit.
that's right. Absolutely.
It was given to
Absolutely.
you to share it with the world in whatever fashion that you can, in love and kindness and goodness, to put it out
Mm-hmm.
there in the world. I'm always saying, you know what? I just want to toss out nuggets of hope, and I can't do it. I can't change the world, but I can change my small slice of the world for
That's
the better.
exactly what I say. Yeah.
And if everybody did that in their own slice of the world, this world would be so different, so different.
It would be
That's why I
beautiful.
like books, because you're tossing that out there,
Mm-hmm.
especially children's books.
Mm-hmm.
This is just my opinion. I think children, and the ones that you write, the way that you write, you're setting that out there for the younger ones to read, and hopefully that sits in their heads and in their little hearts and stays with them,
Mm-hmm.
and they carry it with them as they grow.
I do hope so. In Charlie and the Tire Swing, it is multi-generational. And the reason I wrote it, the inspiration was really my son. When he was little, he had a tire swing on a great big giant oak tree. And so he would say, Mama, Mama, come out, and I'd push him because, okay, you ready? Here goes my imagination. And truly, this is how it would be. And he would come up with a story. And, sometimes he was Dick Tracy out on a mission. And, sometimes he was MacGyver out doing something and all that kind of stuff. But, and so I thought, and every time, he came up with his own little lesson of helping people. And so fast forward, I thought, you know, I'm going to write Charlie. That's not my son's name, but I like the name Charlie. Charlie and the tire swing, but I'm going to make it multi generational so that the kid's going to learn there's great grandparents, grandparents, and then there's them, right? Parents, and then there's them. And I actually love it when I receive emails saying, Mike, I couldn't even get through the story. All my kid wanted to know is, do I have a great grandpa? Do I have a great grandpa, great grandma? And they're like, I want to know more about that. And then they'll get to the story and so forth. Or in the way the illustrator, Judy Gaudette, did the illustrations, you go through the seasons. So the kid, when he first gets not Charlie, but the great grandpa gives his grandson a little seed for an oak tree. And the little kid goes through the season and keeps looking. There's nothing there yet because he has a little marker. And the illustrator shows the different seasons till a little twig pops up. And again, the story has so many layers because there's seasons, there's family history, there's this loveliness where the child Charlie is at his grandpa's house, but it was really his great grandpa's house. And so it's very magical. And in the end, Charlie's grandpa goes and gets a tire out of the garage with Charlie coming, and they hang up the tire swing. And that's the beginning of Charlie's adventures. So there'll be more stories coming. So
Oh, yay. I was going to say, is there going to be more coming of Charlie and his tire swing? Because I want to read them.
so much more, and so lessons learned are Boomer, the way I did Boomer, the Curious Bunny, and now it did so well, thank you, Lord, that there's going to be a series. And so Boomer is all about, I don't want to just sit around the little forest. I want to see what else is out there, And so he hops out to explore the world. And the way I make it very sing-songy in some ways, that the kids and Boomer went to see, and then the kid learns to say what he could see. So you're reading the story, and there'll be a point Boomer went to see, and then you pause, and the kid goes to see what he could see. So the child becomes part of the story. And I know my grandson just loves it. I have to pause like that so he can say to see what he could see, or then
And that's going to stick with them. That's going to stick with them.
Exactly what you said. And so I take part of my, what I did as a elementary preschool teacher and so forth. And I know the skills that they have to learn, comprehension and recall. And in that book, there's a lot of comprehension and recall that takes place. So there's a lot of learning lessons going on, and the kid doesn't even know it, but all of a sudden he discovers that he can recall. But when he's in the classroom and he's like, well, what did the teacher say? What did the teacher say? What did the teacher say? And his brain's going, I don't think I can do it, But if he remembers that, well, you did it with Boomer, then he's going to go, well, I did it with Boomer. Boomer did this, and then he did that, and did that, and he made us all the way back home. Then the kid's going to go, I can do recall, no problem.
Now, see that, your background is perfect to be a children's book writer.
Thank you.
I enjoy looking back sometimes and seeing the steps that we've had to take to where we're at now and what we're doing now. And you get this little light bulb that goes, oh, that's why I did that for 10 years, or that's why I did that for 20 years. Because my background is sales and marketing. And I love it. I love being in front of people. I love meeting new people. I love talking to people. I love doing this podcast. You can put me in front of any people, audience, whatever, and I'll chit chat. It's, something that I love doing. And I was good at that, doing sales and marketing for close to 25 years. And now what I'm doing now, because I do everything myself, I have to do all of my own marketing, but it's not as overwhelming and scary because I know how to do it.
Right.
The base now it's a learning curve for authors and getting a book and stuff out there. But I have that background, just like you've got yours to be, makes you probably the perfect children's author, having that background that you have. You talked about your illustrator. Does an illustrator come with the publishing house, or did you find your own illustrator?
Again, another excellent question. In some cases with publishing houses, they have their own illustrator. So with Nords Triad Publications, they have their own illustrator. Though the first book out, Boomer, which was the first one they did with me, they let me use Judy Gaudette. And I could still use her, but I'm going to go ahead and go in-house because there are going to be so many more Boomers, and the computer makes it easier, and Judy does it old school, which is beautiful, but it's hard to get Boomer to look exactly the same. So, but I'm sure I'll use Judy in other ways. And I've used different illustrators depending on the story. I know a lot of authors like to use the same exact one. So when people go, oh, I know that author because of that, the way the illustrations are done. the way I see it is, so for example, in Harry the Camel, the illustrators from Sri Lanka, a good friend in Dubai, and she always wanted to illustrate a book. And so I'm like, okay, you're going to do one of mine. And so I feel like if God's blessed me to be able to write a children's book and it gets published, which is a blessing on itself, that I should open doors for others as well. And so Judy Gaudette, first time illustrating for children, now has done several other authors. My Sri Lanka friend, she, has illustrated now for others. So opening doors is really something that I find joy in.
I am right there with you again, sister. That's why I coordinate anthologies, and I've done 5 so far. And
Wow.
I love doing that because it's giving people an opportunity to write when they may never have done it to begin with, or
Mm-hmm.
they have never done it and they're like, they can become a published author with their 1,500 word story in a book.
Mm-hmm.
And or they just they're saying, I don't want to do anything, I just I've always had this story in my head, and I'm so glad, so they can say, look, I'm in a book, you know
Mm-hmm.
and that's just exciting. And that feeling when you get that in your hands, how exciting that is. And I love being able to provide that. That's why I love coordinating anthologies. And it's a lot of work, a lot, because I'm doing everything. It's a lot of work. But the end product, it's not just one story, it's 10, 12, 15, 18, 20 different stories. So someone can pick up that book, and not every story in that book is going to be for everybody, but there will be one story that hits that person's heart
Yeah.
and just might be the spark of light that they needed at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Being able to,
Mm-hmm.
that's something I enjoy doing, giving someone an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. And I've had people that have been multi-published authors, and they're like, "Oh, I've got a story. Can I be in your book?" Yeah, yeah, you can. Come on in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just fun. It's fun, but it's also an opportunity for other authors to write outside of their normal genre too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've done a couple of anthologies, and I'm so proud to be part of them. And to read short stories from other people that I never would have known about, and I've become friends with. So there's so many things that come from doing what you're doing, and yay for you for opening doors and helping others. And like you said, maybe they may not ever write another story, but maybe one of them turns around and goes, "You were just the step I needed to start writing more stories. You gave them the confidence." So,
Yeah, gives that little boost. Yeah, and
mhm,
there is a couple of the ladies that uh from a few years ago, in one of the first ones, they said that, they've continued to write, or the one lady, she started journaling and she journals every day now. And that's just, to
that's
me, that's
wonderful.
awesome.
That's absolutely wonderful.
They don't want to be published. They don't want to go through that
Mhm,
whole rigmarole, but they always
mhm,
just wanted, I guess they needed that boost to be able to get
mhm,
what's in their heads down on
mhm,
paper, and it
mhm.
makes them feel better to be able to do that. And or they're writing it for those that are coming along behind them.
Yes, exactly, which is leads into exactly what was in my brain while you were talking. So for all your listeners and viewers, you don't have to be published to write your stories. Your family history is your story already. And to write those lovely stories of maybe of your childhood, or I've put together stories that my mom's, told. And so it's called the Floyd family stories, snippets. And so, there's snippets all about my daddy because he had already gone to heaven when I came up with this idea. But it's insights that my grandson and even my brothers discovered, little stories about my daddy growing up. And then mama sharing stories about, living in Pennsylvania, by the way, and moving to Oklahoma and what it felt like to go from such a strange East Coast to Middle America is very different, especially, in the 30s. And so, and then just growing up in her just lovely stories that share part of your world. And then mama would share stories about great grandma or it'd be her grandparents and so forth. And now we have all these stories together and it's family history. And so I encourage everyone to sit down and write fun little, it can be just little snippets, one liners, two liners, or video yourself telling the story because the magic in your eyes about remembering your first time sledding, it's going to be incredible. We all don't have to be published, but those family stories, you can't imagine how you're going to help people, your own loved ones, in years to come, is my personal opinion.
Well, and just think, so you've got grandchildren. I've got a grandchild. Just think that years down the road, when they pick up something that you've written and be like, wow, my grandma wrote this. Wow. Or, wow, my grandma thinks the same way I do,
Exactly.
on this or that, what have you. Yeah, it's what a neat legacy. So journal it, whatever. You can buy all kinds of notebooks at the dollar store.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just write.
And just
Just write.
write. Yeah, just
Mhm.
write. Just do it. You don't have to
Mhm.
do it for anybody else but yourself.
Yes, and I'll tell you one more tidbit if we have time. So I have a root wall, a giant root wall going up the stairs, and it goes from like the 1800s up to present time, and of all different family members. So when I saw my eldest daughter was going through the change, puberty, I moved my mama's 13-year-old picture down so that when my daughter was sitting on the stairs, she'd look over and see her grandma. Now, my mother was extremely gorgeous in her younger days, but her 13-year-old picture was just like all of us, going through the change, right? And I remember one day she was like, are you sure that was grandma? I go, yeah, that was grandma, but she was 13. Well, I'm 13. I guess there's hope for me, And that picture did exactly what I wanted it to do, right?
Right.
Is
Because we're
is
all gawky and dorky and just not knowing anything at 13. You're wondering what the heck's going on.
Oh, I know, exactly. My youngest daughter is that way. And I said, don't worry, honey. My youngest daughter comes home and she's in middle school for the first time, which means sixth grade over here. And she's like, so, Mom, what's liposuction? And I'm like, where did you hear that word? And so she's like, well, my new friend's mom told me her mom, she was a former Miss Texas, and said that she needed liposuction. And do you think I need liposuction? And I go, no. She goes, but what about my little tummy here? And I go, honey, you know how all of us have big boobs? And she says, yeah. I go, honey, it's just all going to move right on up and you're going to look great.
Perfect.
And that was the end of it.
And that was the end of that.
No lipo for me, just keep coming up.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
Sorry.
as we get ready to wrap this up today, this has just been such a pleasure and a blessing to have you on my show. I appreciate your time. I'd love to have you back on, especially when you've got some more new books coming out. Definitely want to have you back on to chit chat about them. But I ask all of my guests before we wrap up, first off, share where folks can find you. But then after that, I would like you to share a nugget of hope with the listeners, something that they can tuck away and carry with them for the rest of the day. So the floor is yours once again.
Oh my goodness, there's so many things I could say to that. So we'll start off with the easy one, which is so you can find me at diannfloydboehm.com. Now I'm going to spell it because I even make Diann hard. DiannFloydBoehm.com and sign up for my newsletter. I would just absolutely love that. You can always email me, and I love receiving emails, suggestions, ideas, what inspire you, like you're thinking that you might want to be an author. Just email me because I love doing that. You can find my books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and you can always order it from your very favorite local bookstore. I just love local bookstores, and they can have it for you in a jiffy. So now, nuggets of hope. Where do you start? Hope is a powerful word, and we always need to remember inside of us that there's a light in us, and we can make that light grow. But the way we make the light grow is to believe in hope and to know that each second can be a little bit better as long as we believe in ourselves and love ourselves. Because if we can love ourselves, then we can share hope and passion. And isn't that what the world's all about? Is to share love and hope. But please love yourself and know that hopefully every single day that you're able to open your eyes is already a blessing.
That is a perfect nugget of hope. And I hope everyone out there listening, I hope you caught that. Hope you caught that and you carry it with you and share it. Share it with others, folks. Share your light with others. And let's brighten up this world that can feel pretty dark some days. We can let's toss nuggets of hope out there like confetti, those little sparkles of light. Let's just cover the world with it.
Why not? Why not?
Diann, thank you once again. And everything, all her contact information and her website and all that will be in the show notes. And we're also on YouTube, folks. So please make sure you subscribe to the channel, which is just Nuggets of Hope on YouTube. But everything will be in the description there as well. Diann, thank you so much for being on my show today. Again, I do want to have you back. This has been an absolute pleasure and many blessings tossed in there throughout. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a blessed day.
You do the same. And everybody out there listening, thank you so much once again for sharing part of your day with myself and my guest, Diann Floyd Boehm, today. My name is Kim Lengling. I am your host. Let fear bounce. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed. Thanks so much for joining me on Let Fear Bounce this week. New episodes upload each Wednesday, folks, so be sure that you subscribe on one of your favorite platforms that you listen on. Also, we're on YouTube, so hop on over to YouTube, folks, and subscribe there. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you. You are amazing. Have a beautiful day. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed.